Every second worldwide, 4 babies are born. That makes around 12 babies just while you've been watching this. Now there are 7.3 billion people living on our planet, and overpopulation is thought to be a serious global issue. Rapid population growth has brought pressure on economic and social development. It's well known that China has the world's biggest population, with 1.3 billion people, and is equivalent to the populations of North and South America, Australia, New Zealand, and Western Europe combined. A big population may sound like a big problem, but in fact it can bring many big advantages. A large workforce has helped China become one of the world's biggest economies in just one generation. This has lifted 800 million people out of poverty and enabled China to build the largest education system in the world. But a big population also means greater pressure on resources. Finding the balance between population and resources is an issue that all governments face. Many introduce policies designed to affect the growth or demographic of their population. Japan has the world's highest numbers of over 65-year-olds, which means its government has adapted working and healthcare policies to cope. Countries with low birth rates offer financial incentives for families to have more children. China's most famous population policy was the one-child policy. In 2015, China revised the population law and encouraged couples to have 2 children, which could mean an extra 15 million babies born in the next 5 years. When China already has the world's biggest population, why encourage an increase in the birth rate? Before the one-child policy, a typical Chinese family had around 6 children. But the government worried that China's high birth rate was incompatible with plans to improve living standards. The answer? A national campaign to promote birth control. So by the end of the 1970s, a typical Chinese family had only 3 children. But the population was close to 1 billion, and with 2/3 of it under 30, more babies were just around the corner. So in 1980, the one-child policy was implemented. This rule wasn't quite as simple as its name implies. Most Han Chinese couples living in towns and cities had 1 child. But if you lived in the countryside, or were an only child married to another only child, you could usually have 2. Generally, couples from China's 55 minority nationalities were allowed to have 2 and sometimes 3 children. So did it work? Fast forward to the 21st century, and China's birth rate has more than halved, which means the growth of the population has slowed down, as expected, and the quality of life for people across China has risen. Let's compare China with India, the second biggest population in the world, and where there hasn't been an effective birth control policy. 47 in every 50 Chinese women can read and write, compared with only 30 women in India. If we look at the numbers of people living in poverty, in China it's 1 in every 50 people, compared with 11 in India. But China's one-child policy also had unintended consequences. The size of its working-age population is falling. Around 15% of the population is now over retirement age. Most Chinese people rely heavily on their only child. There are now also more men than women in China, and by 2020 there will be 30 million more men of marriageable age than women. Some people believe that the one-child policy has altered family life, creating a generation of little emperors who are both adored and pressurized by their tiger mums and dads. China now wants to redress the balance by encouraging couples to have 2 children. The population is expected to peak at around 1.4 billion. Experts believe the change will help to counterbalance the fall in birth rate, the shrinking workforce, and the ageing population. At the same time as keeping the advantages of better healthcare, improved education, and raised living standards that a slower growing population brings. Of course, not every couple in China will have 2 children. Today, people choose the family size that works for them, whether that's 2 children, 1 child, or none.